You don't see him yet. This audience will play along with anything. So. They're easy.
It's perfect.
It's not in the bigger box here. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen.
Let him have it.
Yeah. I want to tell you, back there, Bill's standing by the back door. He would let you out if you wanted out, but you don't want to go out. Right there on the wall behind him is a little bio thing that stands. I mean, he used to be on TV in the 50s and 60s, right? In the lives of, he has no clue how many people, how many mothers said, all right, now you sit here and you watch King's Clubhouse with Stan and Nomo and Miss Mo. As they're right out, Miss Victor brought us And so he's here tonight because I turned a certain age, which will not be mentioned at this time, and my husband said, what would be the thing dearest to your heart? And I said, oh, something wild, like Stan Boreson. Normally think of those two words at the same time, but this man can inspire that, you know? And we thought, it's about time he came down here to South Puget Sound. To a person who has held a very special part, and I wish Nomo and Miss Mo were here tonight.
They'd be 37.
They would be 37 and darn happy to be here, I think, if they could. Thanks for coming.
Well,
I get to shake his hand. This is like an honor.
This is so much fun because I started playing the accordion when I was 12, and I started playing for dances when I was 16, and that's 30 years ago now. And my first job was at a grange in Snohomish. It was the Garden City Grange in Snohomish, and we played for a dance there, and they played whist before the dance, you know, that card game, and they told us we got $2.50 a night, each of us. There were 6 in the band. And they told us that if there were more than 25 tables, we could get another 50 cents. So we'd rush in there every other Saturday night, you know, and we'd count the tables. It took us about 6 months to figure out that they couldn't get more than 25 tables. That's how I found out I was Norwegian. But you know, they asked me to come down here and sing you some of these songs that I don't get any requests for. I just love to hear them again myself, but it's so nice to see such a big crowd here tonight. You know, the other night I went into this big hall to entertain, and there was only about 4 or 5 people there. Yeah, and I said to the guy at the door, I said, did you tell him I was coming? He says, no, but I'll find out who did. Oh, and I got to sing a couple of my Uncle Torvald's. My Uncle Torvald and Aunt Lena are my Norwegian relatives, you know, that live over in Paulsbo. Pretty little town on the water, and I don't know if you know it or not, but Paulsbo is the home of the very famous Norwegian daredevil, Evil Knudsen. His big trick is he jumps 4 lutefisk barrels with a rotor. Those were good in Paulsbo. Torvald came running into this bar over in Paulsbo the other day. He says, Vic, what do you do for hiccups? What do you do for hiccups? So the bartender swatted him across the face with the bar rag and then squirted him with the seltzer bottle, then grabbed him by the shoulders and started shaking him and said, how's your hiccups now? He said, it ain't for me, it's for leaning out in the car. They were sitting there rocking the other night, and Lena looks over at Torvald. She says, Torvald, whatever happened to our sexual relations? He says, I don't know, Lena. Didn't you get a Christmas card from him? Helga called up the newspaper. She said, I would like to speak to obituaries. So they looked her up. He says, this is obituaries, madam. What may I do for you? Well, I want to put an ad in your obituaries. Well, what would you like to say? I would like to say, Oli died. Just 2 words, Oli died? Yeah, yes, 2 words. He died. Well, he says, we have a special this week. We have 5 words for $1. For the same amount of money, you can have 2 more words. 3 more words. In that case, I would like to say, Oli died, boat for sale. I called up Torvald the other day, and he was feeling so puny, and I says, Torvald, what's the matter? Well, he says, my friend Knut passed away. Oh, I said, that's terrible. What happened to Knut? Well, he says he works down there in Tumwater in the Olympia Brewery, and he fell into a vat of beer, and he drowned to death. I said, that is terrible. He fell into a vat of beer, and he drowned to death. I said, did he drown right away? He says, no. He had to crawl out twice to go to the bathroom. Saturday, can't think of anything that I'd rather do. This is a lovely way to spend a Saturday, can't think of anyone any nicer than you. You ladies look just terrific, and you fellas look dignified too. I'd like to entertain you with some old songs and some new. You know, my favorite hobby is to take songs that are very popular, and then I change the words, and I like to see how long it takes them to become unpopular. I've been having wonderful luck with this song. It was made famous by Roy Acuff and the Smoky Mountain Boys, and it was called the Wabash Cannonball. But I changed the words. Now I call it the Waitress at the Norway Hall. Well, listen to the whistles stomping on the floor as she glides across and through those swinging doors. She's strong and tall and handsome, known quite well by all. She's that sexy waitress down at the Norway Hall. She came from Missoula one cold December day, and as she walked down Main Street, you can hear all the fellers say, that girl must be Norwegian, she's so long and so tall. She's that sexy waitress down at the Norway Hall. The fellas all get bug-eyed as she goes passing by. Any son of Norway tries to catch her eye. Our eyes are all so jealous of that living doll. She's that sexy waitress down at the Norway Hall. Now listen to the whistles stomping on the floor as she glides up from the kitchen and through those swinging doors. She's blonde and tall and handsome, known quite well by all. She's that sexy waitress down at the Norway Hall. Thank you, music lovers. Wherever you are tonight. You know, I've been on the Garrison Keillor Prairie Home Companion show 6 times now, and every time I go back there, I fly back on a Boeing Yankee Jumbo Jet. They make them out here, you know, we're so proud of it. And you ladies would appreciate this. I was sitting next to a lady who had on the biggest diamond I've ever seen. It was a real sparkler. you know, and she knew just how to use it. It was all over the ceiling. And you can't ignore something like that for 3.5 hours. I knew I had to say something, so I finally says, "Ma'am," I said, "that's the biggest diamond I've ever seen." She said, "Yup, this is a very big diamond." Well, I said, "A diamond that big must have a history behind it." "Yup. A diamond this big has a history behind it." Well, I said, "What is the history behind that great big diamond?" "Well," she says, "this just happens to be the very famous Peterson diamond. And the famous Peterson diamond comes with a curse." I said, "It's the famous Peterson diamond and it comes with a curse." I said, "What's the curse?" She said, "Mr. Peterson." They do the show from the New World Theater in St. Paul, and I had never been to St. Paul before, and I was interested in the climate back there. In the winter, I heard it got very cold, so I was standing out in the alley getting a breath of air, and this fellow was standing next to me, and I said to him, I said, "You know, is it true that it gets as cold back here in the wintertime as they say it does?" He says, "Oh, yes. Oh, boy. Does it get cold back here in St. Paul in the wintertime? It gets so doggone cold here in St. Paul in the wintertime that there's some parts that get 50 below. And those are just the parts you'd like to keep warm, too." But you know, there aren't many nationalities that you can have fun with anymore. Everybody is so sensitive, you know. I used to, on television, if you can believe this, I went down to Brockman's and I got these slanted glasses, you know, and I had a kimono that I got down from Brockman's, and I used to do these Japanese and Chinese songs. You can't do that anymore. And, but the Scandinavians let you have fun with them. And I'll give you a good example. Out in Ballard, this fellow was, a Norwegian fellow, was waiting for the light to change there at the mailbox where everything happens out in Ballard. And he had a gunny sack over his shoulder. And this Swedish fella comes up to him and he says, "What have you got in that gunny sack?" The Norwegian says, "I've got some chickens." See, it says, "How many chickens you got in that gunny sack?" The Norwegian says, "If you can guess, I'll give you both of them." And the Swede says, "5." Says, "You missed it by 2." But the same 2 guys were walking along Market Street and they spot this $10 bill and they jump on it, and then they have to decide who should get it. Well, finally the Norwegian says, "I have a good idea. We will both bend down and pick it up, one from each end. And then we will bring it up to our mouths. And then we will bite down, one from each end. And then we shall commence to pull. And whoever will pull the hardest will end up with the $10 bills forevermore." So they're standing there with the $10 bill in their mouth, and the Norwegian says, "Are you ready?" And the Swede says, "Yeah." I hope you haven't heard, but Ole was having trouble with his love life, so he heard about this doctor that had a cure for this problem. So he made an appointment, went to see this doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh yes, Ole," he says, "I'm glad you came to me." He says, "I can cure your problem." He says, "For $5,000, you can make love once a month. For $10,000, you can make love every 2 weeks, but for $20,000, you can make love anytime you want to." He says, "What treatment would you like?" "Well," he says, I better go home and talk it over with Lena." He says, "You do that." And come back tomorrow and let me know what treatment you'd like. So he comes back the next morning. He says, well, did you go home and talk to Lena? Yes, I did. Well, does she want you to have the $5,000 treatment, the $10,000 treatment, or the $20,000 treatment? Well, I went home and talked it over with Lena, and she said she'd rather remodel the kitchen. I have 2 Christmas albums out, you know. One is called I Used to Go Nuts at Christmas, and the other one is called Stan Boreson Fractures Christmas. This is from the Fracture Christmas album, and at the end of the song I mentioned a store that's really in trouble. They're hanging on just barely, you know, and I wanted to help them out as much as I could. So I mentioned the name of the store at the end of the song, and I will at the end of it this time too, and I hope it helps. Sleigh bells ring, and I am listening, but I am turning and twisting, because I'm itching up here and then I'm scratching down there. I'm walking in the winter underwear. Now the front is all battered, and the back is all tattered, but when I'm cold to the core, I crawl through the trap door and bump into the winter underwear. I don't care if it rains or snows or freezes. I am so warm I just don't give a hoot. I put on all the stockings I can locate, and then I wear 2 pair of trousers with my suit. But when I start to perspire, yeah, then it sets me on fire, because I'm itching up here and then I'm scratching down there. I'm walking in my winter underwear. I got them at Nordstrom. Boy, there's a bunch of speeds that are doing good, you guys. Walking in my winter underwear. Yeah, sure. You know, Ole had to sign this legal document out in Ballard. And so he went up to Market Street and he found the attorney's office. He went up there, the attorney read him the agreement and sat him down there and he says, now Ole, you sign your name here at the bottom of the page. So Ole picks up the pen, he goes, X, 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 X. Well, the attorney says, I suppose those first 2 X's stand for your name, Ole Olson, is that correct? He says, yeah. Well, he says, what did the second 2 X's stand for? He says, MD. It's not going to get any better, you guys. Lena was having a legal problem, so she called, there's a new attorney firm out there in Ballard. Olson, 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 and Olson. So she called him up. She says, I'd like to speak to Mr. Olson, please. He says he's in court today. Well, then I will speak to Mr. Olson. He's on his lunch hour. Well, I suppose I could speak to Mr. Olson. He's on vacation. Well, then I will speak to Mr. Olson. Speaking. Ole took Lena to this fancy restaurant. And when they got to the front door, they made her de-stop and says, you can't come in. He says, why is that? He says, you're not properly attired. Well, he says, what's wrong? He says, you don't have a tie on. So he's miffed about this, but he goes out to the pickup truck and he rummages around in the back end and comes up with a jumper cable. Wraps it around his neck and ties a big bow in it. Goes back to the front door of the restaurant again and maybe he says, oh yes, you can come in now, you're properly attired. But don't try and start anything. You know, we have a little summer cabin up on Camino Island, and I was up there. News travels fast up there, and the word got around the island that the Larson boys, who were juvenile delinquents, and they're also bad kids, had stolen the pig off of Larson's farm, Johnson's farm. right down the road from the Larsons. And so there's only one way on and off Camino Island, up Lamb's Hill or down Lamb's Hill, through Stanwood. And my gosh, they're coming down the hill. And the sheriff had got wind of this because the tide was out. He set up a roadblock right at the bottom of Lamb's Hill. Well, here come the Larson boys. The pig is in the back seat. Ole says to Knut, "There's the sheriff. What the heck are we going to do now?" He says, "Get the pig up in the front seat and set him between us and put your hat in his head." So they do that, and they come coasting up to the roadblock, and the sheriff walks over to the car, and he says, "Who is your name driving this Model A car, if you please?" He says, "Ole Larson, Your Honor." And he says, "You on the other side, with your back to me looking out the window like you don't know I'm here at all. What is your name?" He says, "Knut Larson, sir." He says, "And you in the middle with that hat on your head, what is your name?" So they poke the pig, and the pig goes, "Boink." Sheriff says, "Okay, pass on." So they drive away, and as they're driving away, the sheriff walks over to one of his deputies and says, "Yes, you know something. That Oink Larson has two of the homeliest brothers I've ever had." Oh my God. Now I gotta tell you my favorite. The same two guys hired this bush pilot to fly him way up into the remote area of Alaska to moose hunt. And as he lands on this lake, he says, "Now fellas, I only have this little plane, and I only want you to shoot one moose because I can only cart out one moose on this little plane." So he says, "I'll see you in a week." So a week later, he flies back, and as he lands the plane, he sees that they've shot two moose. Well, he's very upset. He says, "Fellas, I thought I told you that I can only fly one moose out of here on this little plane." Ole says, "The guy we had last year did it." Well, he says, "How did he do it?" Well, he said he tied one moose on one pontoons and the other moose on the other pontoons, and away we went. Well, he says, "If he can do it, so can I." So they tie a moose on each pontoon. He taxis way down to the end of the lake, turns the plane around, guns the engine for all it's got, barely clears the end of the lake and crashes right into the side of the mountain. Ole is pulling himself out of the wreckage. He says, Knut, where are we?" "Well," he says, "I think we're about 50 feet higher than where we crashed last year." I would like to sing one of my favorites now. My favorite hobby, is to take songs that are very popular and change the words. And most of these don't get very popular. I love Western music. I don't know if you know it or not, but I was the one that wrote "When the Lone Ranger Ripped His Jeans, We Found His Hideout." I was the one that wrote "The Shades of Night Were Falling Fast, but I Got a Good Look Anyway." Here's one of my favorite songs. I left my heart in Mukilteo. There from her houseboat, she called to me. I left my little Ballard peach adrift on Columbia Beach, over by Langley. The smell of herring and clam shells and seaweed fill the air. I don't give a hoot. I started rolling from Mukilteo. She caused me misery and stripes too high, isn't it? And if I ever pull that dramatic part to Mukilteo, it's going to be the biggest mistake of my life. an Everett Seagull. And if you're ever up Everett Way during the 4th of July, you be sure and drop in. See, Everett is right next door to Muckleteal. And they have a big celebration in Everett on the 4th, and they have a parade and a carnival and everything. Then they go up to Forest Park and play games. And last 4th, they invited me to ride in the parade, which was fun. And then we went up to Forest Park to play some of these games, and they surprised me. They had a Stan Boreson look-alike contest. And I was busy, I wasn't doing anything, so I entered. I came in third. I have 14 cassettes now, and CDs, and 2 videos. King Television put out 2 videos. But, you know, when you come out with a new record, you have to go around the country and plug it. And so when this last one came out called I Don't Give a Hoot, my wife Barbara and I drove down to San Francisco and stayed at this nice hotel. And then I visited all the radio and television stations, left them the record. Next day I went down to check out, and there was this atrocious bill, which was very large. And I said to the guy at the desk, I says, this is an atrocious large bill, and I'd like some explanation. Well, he says, what's bothering you? Well, I says, there's $75 on here for laundry. I didn't send out a thing. And he says, I can't help that. It was there if you'd have wanted it. You know, that smart aleck. Well, I says, there's $75 on there for room service. I didn't send out for a thing. I can't help it, it was there if you'd have wanted it. Well, he said, there's $75 on there for car rental. I drove down in my own car. He says, I can't help it, it was there if you'd have wanted it. Well, I says, I'm going to pay this atrocious large bill, but I'm going to subtract $225. He says, why is that? I says, for kissing my wife. He says, I didn't kiss your wife. I said, I can't help that, it was there if you'd have wanted it. Take somebody's music song that somebody owns and you change the words all around, well, that's called a parody, and you can't do that unless you get the owner's permission. Well, we wanted to do a country western Swedish album, and so I rewrote a bunch of these country western songs, you know. The one I wanted to do the most was Eddie Arnold's big hit, called The Cattle Call. Well, I rewrote the words, and I knew I had to get his permission, so I sent him down to Los Angeles, and he sent back this little note to me. It said, go ahead and sing it that way, see if I care. Since I'm very serious-minded, and I got to get in the mood. I feel it coming on. It's here. Each day when I'm working, my brain starts up perking. Can't wait till that noon whistle calls, because I know for my lunch I'm gonna have a whole bunch of Hilda's good Swedish meatballs. Golly, they make me feel jolly. I like them both big and both small. Well, that's good Swedish meatball. And they are sure dandy, and they sure come in handy for plugging up holes in the wall. Well, that's good Swedish meatball. I've got to see what, oh yes, I know what I want to do now. I had several requests, but I'm going to sing it anyway. No. No, but I did have this children's show on King Television. I was down at King for 18 years. And I was there actually right up until the dog died. And when the dog died, they canceled the show. That's how I figured out who the star was. I had this wonderful dog called No Motion. And she was a basset hound. And she was one of the laziest things that ever lived. But she really wasn't as lazy as she appeared to be, because she'd get down there and get into her little basket, and they'd turn on those real hot lights, you know. Well, she just collapsed, you know, slept through the whole thing. I'd have to wake her up to, you know, the only thing that she would wake up for was a Hostess Twinkie. And I'd wave a Hostess Twinkie under her nose and she'd come alive a little bit, you know, enough to eat that, and then she'd go back to sleep again. But people started sending me in stories about kids, and I've got a big stack of them now. But one of my favorites, I got to tell you, this little boy was doing so poorly in the public school, so his dad decided to send him over to the Catholic school, because they do such a good job of educating, his sisters do. So they sent him over there, and my gosh, his first report card comes out, it's all A's and B's. His dad was just tickled to death. He said, you know, son, you were doing so poorly in the public school, now you're over there in the Catholic school, you get A's and B's. He says, what changed your attitude towards school? He says, well, I'll tell you, Dad. The first day when I came into that class and I saw that guy over in the corner they'd nailed to a cross, I knew Little Johnny comes to his mother one day and says, Mom, is it true that we start from dust and when we pass away we return to dust? Mother says, that's right, Johnny. They're teaching you right in school. We start from dust and when we pass away we return to dust. He says, well, Mom, you better go upstairs and check under the bed. There's someone there either coming or going. Well, anyway, little Grandpa's babysitting Johnny. Little Johnny looks up to his Grandpa and he says, Grandpa, can you make a noise like a frog? Well, Grandpa says, I suppose I can make a noise like a frog. Johnny, why do you want me to make a noise like a frog? Well, he says, I heard Grandma say that if you would only croak, we could all go to Disneyland. This mother goes to wake up her son, and she says, John, you got to get up and go to school. He says, I don't want to go to school. He says, you got to get up and go to school. You're going to be late. He says, I don't want to go to school. I hate the school. I hate the teachers. I hate the kids. I hate everything about school. Well, she said, John, you got to get up and go to school. You're 50 years old and you're the principal. Every afternoon they used to dolly a camera up to a knothole, and then they'd switch to another camera. It looked like we came into the clubhouse through the knothole. And then I'd play the piano or play the accordion and sing songs, and I'd have my lazy hound dog Nomo do all her fabulous tricks. Like open one eye, close the other one. She'd wag her tail if I helped. But anyway, we used to have to sing this song every day, and I'd like to sing it for you now. If any of you remember the words, well, join in. Think we're ready, are we? Here we go. This is nostalgic time. Zero rockets, push your rockets, hallelujah, pub. That's the secret password that we used to have at the club. And zero rockets, push your rockets, hallelujah, band. Now you are a member of HTV Club West Stand. And Waterwork Peterson, Peter the Flea, and Victor Rolla, I'll give you a hand on that. I did want to mention, though, you know, there used to be 6 daily children's television shows in the Puget Sound area. And I'll refresh your memory here. There was Breaking Bill on Channel 11 with the Crazy Donkey. And then there was Captain Puget at Como. And he'd have Ivor come over now and then sing sea shanties. And then at the Cairo there was J.P. Patchen and Gertrude. And King had Wanda at noon. And she said that she was on for the potty chair crowd. Then Sheriff Tex was ahead of me, and then I followed him. But now, of course, there's none. And all these different shows, of course, had their little gimmicks to try and attract an audience. And we used to have fun, though. We still, J.P. Patches and his wife are good friends of ours. We love to get together and reminisce. But my gimmick was to write songs to kind of teach the kids to be the right kind of kids, I hoped. The mothers loved these songs. I don't know how the kids like them, but here's one that I used to sing to the kids, and the mothers used to think this was great. There are two little magic words that can open any door with ease. One little word is thanks, and the other little word is please. You'll be so surprised at what these two little words can do. They work like a charm for me, and they work like a charm for you. Now if you want the butter, I'd say please pass the butter. Good manners are never out of style. And when you get the butter, the next thing that you utter is thanks with a great big happy smile. There are two little magic words that can open any door with ease. One little word is thanks, and the other little word is please. Honest? Yeah. I normally work by the hour, so I'll be back in a few minutes.